can't help but feel good. I can't help but feel fine. Everything is in its place and everything is mine. I can't help but feel good. I can't help but feel fine. Everything is in its place and all of it is mine. Ooh, I can't help but smile. Ooh, I can't help but smile. I'm reinventing myself. I'm me and nobody else. I'm reinventing myself. I'm me and nobody else. Ooh, I can't help but smile. Ooh, I can't help but smile.
Maybe I come around this side.
No.
Okay, maybe I come around this side.
No.
Okay, maybe I climb over top.
No.
You need help building more fence?
Okay, come on over.
Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Hello to the Wicked community, the community with the best taste on the internet. Oh, almost had the timing right there. We're getting better every day. How is everybody? Jess Rush, hello to you. Wicked Foxy Dragon, hello. I saw your message. Super exciting. Let's do it. In fact, if you want to get us started with promoting in the chat, I'll follow your lead because you will have a... folks, if you're not aware, Wicked Foxy Dragon's been helping me out quite a bit. She is, in the industry, something that we refer to as a grown-ass adult with quite the ability to organize. So she started a Facebook group, and it appears to be doing well. So we're going to start promoting it here on the channel. And that Facebook group is based around Wicked. And I'm just so pleased by that. Let's do it. I will be joining, or I did join myself. Dawned on me, wow, I don't think I've ever been here for the intro. I gotta make the intro real good. Magic. I got a notification tonight. I see. We be grown-ass adults. Yes, indeed, Jess Rush. Yes, indeed. Well, folks, Donald Trump is a problem. We know this. Fortunately, he's a big, obvious problem. You know, you don't want cancer, but if you gotta have cancer, it's better to have cancer on the outside where you can see it and it's a big, nasty lump and you know you gotta go to the doctor, rather than metastasizing slowly and silently in your lymph nodes. Trump is the big, obvious one. And I say this so that we have some perspective when I tell you about what he's been up to. Because it sounds scary, and it is scary, but the good news is we see it, which means we can do something about it. Let's break into it proper. Oh, I've moved everything around. I'm going to record this. We're going to start it off with Katy Phang. The biggest, most obvious, easiest way to catch Trump we talked about yesterday. It's the documents case. Pretty much open and shut. Katy Phang was reporting on CNN's reporting, so twice removed, truth be told. But reporting on a CNN story where Trump admitted his primary defense, which was not a good defense in the first place, but his primary defense is one even he doesn't believe. Damn it. Well, the easiest case to prove in the litany of Trump crimes is the documents case. And per Katy Phang on MSNBC and CNN, apparently Trump's defense for that he had the ability to mentally declassify documents. Even he doesn't buy it. Let's have a gander. Oh, this is not what I intended at all. There we go. Well, now I'm going to set it up just a little differently, because that is the second thing I want to talk about. Let's look at Miss Katy Phang right here on CNN. Oh, there we are. Beautiful. Hey, all right.
Breaking news. Trump reportedly caught on tape. Damaging new evidence in the Trump classified documents criminal investigation. CNN is reporting prosecutors have obtained an audio recording of a summer 2021 meeting in which former President Donald Trump acknowledges that he held on to a classified Pentagon document about a potential attack on Iran. The recording indicating Trump understood that he had retained classified materials after leaving the White House. The report adds, on the recording, Trump's comments suggest he would like to share the information, but he's aware of limitations on his ability post-presidency to declassify records.
So, Fang's going to go on with all kinds of things. And I'm sure she'll make great points, and I want to hear what she's got to say, because usually Katy Phang expands in a way that I find interesting. But right there, that's what we need to talk about on the recording. And again, the reason I'm sharing secondhand reporting here is that the first-hand reporting says they've got a recording. Means it's very, very reliable. On the recording, Trump's comments suggest he would like to share the information, but he's aware of limitations on his ability post-presidency to declassify documents. All right, point of contention that I will bring up on defense of Trump. Perhaps when they say Trump's comments suggest, what they mean, they're talking about they're suggesting that he's aware of limitations on his ability post-presidency to yada, yada, yada. Suggesting, but that's not what he really meant. Remember, Trump always will he lies like the rest of us breathe. Truth is not important to him. He's not going to, if he can get out of it by lying about what he was suggesting, he will. But I think it's it's a better interpretation. It's a more accurate interpretation to say that the comments suggest that he would like. That's the part they're talking about. All this means is that Trump acknowledged he didn't have the ability to mentally declassify anything, even though that's what he said. Now, what was that argument ever going to hold up in a court of law? Of course not. A court of law is responsible for saying what the law is and determining if somebody's actions are in accordance with it. If Trump would have rolled into the court and made up a law like you can mentally declassify documents, the judge would have said, no, you can't, and then the case would have moved on. But this tells us that Trump knew he was lying. Trump was aware that he was lying. Trump never believed that you can mentally declassify documents, because why then would he have an issue there? Yeah, sure, he could say that he was lying to whoever's on the other end of the recording. Sure, and in fact, he might do that. But come on, Trump voters, people who have folks in their community that are Trump voters, show this to them. Show that frame to them. Right there. On a recording Trump made comments that suggest he would like to share information that he had from classified documents, but that he cannot because they were still classified. He said there's limitations on his ability post-presidency to declassify, meaning he acknowledges that he was still holding on to classified documents. Our property. That's your property, that's my property. That was equally your and my property as it was his. And we didn't say he could have them. We have rules in place who say a person can have them. Actually, the only person that could have those documents, we said, was Joe Biden. We already made that determination. Who's allowed to have them? Not Trump. We said specifically as a country that Trump was not allowed to have those documents. So the question you should ask MAGA folks in your community is simply, if this guy's lying about this, and clearly he is, now we really can't deny it. If he's lying about this, what else was he lying about? What's he been lying to his constituents about? Ask them that for your old pal Jake. All right, let's watch the rest of this, though. I would very much like to see what Miss Katy Phang has to say.
This directly undercuts one of Trump's defenses that he could and that he did declassify everything. CNN has not listened to the recording, but multiple sources have described it. And NBC News has not confirmed this reporting. Now, consider this breaking news with the same lens of new reporting from the Washington Post that prosecutors are closing in on Trump, eyeing Mar-a-Lago surveillance video and possible gaps. The Post reporting Mar-a-Lago prosecutors are looking at a July 2022 episode with Trump surveillance cameras. An employee who helped move boxes of documents last June was then reportedly questioned about his conduct weeks later related to a government demand for surveillance footage from Trump's property. And detailing the employee's actions have caught the attention of investigators as they try to determine whether Trump or people close to him sought to obstruct justice. Joining me now is Maya Wiley, CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights and former SDNY civil prosecutor, and Paul Butler, former federal.
Are we still trying to determine? As investigators try to determine. You know, I bust Michael Cohen's chops all the time, and in full disclosure, the main reason I'm doing it is I expect him to be torn to bits reputationally by the media. By people who are watching the case but have forgotten about the big picture. Let me say that. I expect ugly information to come out at any time about him. I tear into him all the time as a defensive measure because he is walking the righteous path now, regardless of his past behavior, regardless of his past employment. And I also tell you all the time that one of my favorite people to hear from, groups of people to hear from, are folks that used to dance with these devils. Talking about the nitty and the gritty. Michael Cohen has the opinion on the internet that I agree with most regarding Trump and the various investigations. We need, and I say this not as hyperbole, we literally require the law enforcement in our country, the United States being what I'm talking about, but hey, around the world, you should take note and do the same if you're not already, to treat him like anybody else. Why, for God's sake, Katy Phang and company, Why is there debate about this? Now, I'm assuming these guests right now are going to set us straight. But to be clear, what are we still trying to determine? What is left to determine? At this point, I'm not even sure that a trial will be necessary to be longer than 5 minutes. Real simple. Did you say these things? Did you mean these things? Check yes or no. Okay, it looks like you've checked yes for all these boxes. Neat. Guilty. Here's the sentence. The case is that simple. I recognize that as a public employee, you have certain rights. None of them include thieving. Not a one. There's all kinds of interesting things we could ask about this fella. What was he planning on doing with them? Did he already sell some of these documents? They're interesting because, yeah, they affect us. But they're not more than interesting because we probably won't be able to get the answers because they are national security documents. Meaning that even if our security was compromised, it could be further compromised by other people knowing it. It's a dirty game. I don't like how we have set up our government. I don't like that our government is required to play that game. But it is. So we probably won't get firm answers there. I would doubt in our lifetimes. Maybe our grandkids will see those things declassified. But we don't really need a tremendous amount of detail beyond what has already been confirmed publicly by Trump himself, including the existence of the investigation. All right, Katie, bring us home.
Prosecutor and professor of law at Georgetown University. Folks, this is some big news. And of course, the caveat is NBC News has not confirmed the reporting yet, but assuming arguendo, what we've read so far is true. Maya, I'm going to start with you. Your thoughts on this explosive new CNN report?
Well, you said the word, Katie, explosive. I mean, all of this investigation on the part of Jack Smith is about determining Trump's state of mind.
Side note, I love Maya Wiley.
Donald Trump is to be charged with any crime here. Now, we already know the evidence has been very strong and, many legal experts of all stripes and even all political persuasions, including Donald Trump's own former attorney, believe he's in deep peril on an obstruction charge related to these presidential documents that he does not own, that the American people own. But anything that gives evidence and indication that he completely understood that he was not to have or share these documents is just the last nail in a coffin that already has a whole lot of nails in it.
Maya Wiley, I was the paragon of grace. Deep peril is a very polite way of saying something even deeper. Paul, sources are describing the recording as an important piece of evidence in a possible case against Trump, who has repeatedly asserted he could retain presidential records and, quote, automatically declassify documents. Paul, you and I, Maya, all of us, we've talked a lot about the obstruction component of this investigation, but do we now have some of the strongest evidence in support of an Espionage Act violation here?
Absolutely, Katie. This is devastating for Donald Trump for two reasons. First, as Maya said, it's a confession on audio tape that Trump knew that he possessed classified documents. So Trump's defense that he had declassified everything is just a lie. Trump was fully aware that he was illegally hoarding top secret government documents.
Really bears repeating. I said it once, now he said it third time. He knew. It was illegal whether he knew it or not, but we should force supporters of Donald Trump to deal with the fact that he knew he was lying to them about something pretty damn serious. Now, I don't believe they actually even, honestly, truly, really, I don't believe they care about national security. because they understand that applies equally to all, and therefore they don't care for it. They would like us to be less secure collectively. But we have to kill the KFAB here. We have to make sure that MAGA supporters don't get to play a character, the innocent American. A lot of them have been duped, but a lot of them have been pretending to be duped because they enjoy the fact that it makes regular folks angry. They blame regular folks. You know, people that believe in democracy, people that believe all humans have basic rights. Americans. They hate Americans. They blame them for the state of things because they've been told by Fox that all the folks that make up regular folks are in some way bad, including themselves. There's a ton of self-hate. A ton of self-hate. And they're playing this character now of a citizen who believes Trump. I don't think they actually believe Trump, for the record. Just like how that Nazi that got punched in the mush had it coming. That fella, that he was giving an interview right before he got righteously corrected, where he said that they give Trump a pass when he says things about unity because they know that he's really on their side. That's who we got to break the KFAB of, because they indoctrinate people into their cult, their death cult, by seeming reasonable or pretending like a reasonable person could be a part of their group. That's not so. So throw this in their face. Listen to the man right here. He knew. So the questions you're going to have to ask MAGA folks are, is this indeed an actual recording of Donald Trump? When we get that recording, theoretically coming fast. So first of all, is this something that you believe actually happened? Now, Trump is inevitably going to spill the beans. He's going to comment on the news, and he's probably, because it's a recording, going to admit that it's true. He's going to acknowledge that the recording is true and then try to defend the things he said on it. So before Trump does that, try to get the MAGA person who you're thinking of, if you are thinking of one right now, try to get them to pick a side. Does this recording exist or not? Hopefully they will pick the side that says it doesn't exist. If they do that, take it a step further. Lock them in to what their morality is now, because it's about to get contradicted. So if they say, no, it's fake news, doesn't exist, there's no recording. Okay, cool. Let's put a pin in that. If there was such a recording, what would you think of it? Let's pretend for a moment that it is true. Would it be a bad thing? Are we acknowledging then that this was something you would not, you believe it's fake because you believe this is hurtful to Donald Trump? You believe this is something he shouldn't have done? Whether or not you believe he did it, this is an example then of something you think is unacceptable. Get them to come down on that. Now, they'll probably, because they don't actually think Donald Trump is a good person, they'll probably hedge their bets. And they'll probably say, no, it's not that bad. I just don't think it's true. Okay, it's not that bad. Is it a little bad? Honestly, how do you feel about these facts if they were true? Give me your breakdown. Walk them through this. This is how we're going to be pulling people out. We're going to have to, and I'm sorry about this, because it's not the fun kind of politics. But to get to the fun kind of politics, where we actually make things better, we're going to have the same conversation a couple of hundred times between now and 2024, where we slowly walk people through deprogramming And a lot of the conversation, this is a perfect time for this. A lot of the conversation is going to be focused around, okay, if this thing that you call fake news, if it is true, if it was true, hypothetically then, for the sake of conversation, how would you feel about it? Donald Trump is about to be in court constantly, having things that he says are so proved wrong. So get used to this particular technique now, because it's going to help you a great deal going forward.
And second, to your point, Katie, if this reporting is true, this is about national security. It's way more than a documents case, as Mar-a-Lago has sometimes been dismissed. So the most important question is one we don't know the answer to, but Jack Smith might. How was Trump intending to use this material? Maybe he was just holding on to it to impress his friends and kind of a criminal version of show and tell. But prosecutors, they always follow the money, and they almost certainly suspect that Trump had some kind of caper in mind, that he either did or planned to use his illegal access to the nation's most sensitive secrets to enrich himself or to forward his political ambitions.
You know, Maya, I want to emphasize a couple of things that came out of this CNN report. Number one, it dealt with plans for a possible attack on Iran.
Going to get back to Maya Wiley in a second because I adore her. Credit, first of all, for using the word caper. Second of all, I'm going to just toss it in very quickly because it doesn't actually matter. I truly believe somehow, some way, we're going to find out that the sale of the old post office that was going to financially bankrupt Trump, who was already morally bankrupt, is involved in this. Watch that particular space. We'll see. Again, it's irrelevant. Doesn't matter why he did the crime. It truly doesn't. It doesn't make it. There's no reason he could have done it that makes the crime okay. So it's, who cares why? But I think the sale of the old post office is wrapped up in this, for sure.
Talk about security issues, international relations, domestic security issues. But what really struck me, though, is this report talks about, Maya, General Mark Milley. He's actually testified before the grand jury and met with investigators for special counsel Jack Smith. How much more compelling evidence would you need as Jack Smith to be able to be at this point, this tipping point of bringing an indictment against Donald Trump, considering you'd have a witness like Mark Milley who's telling the grand jury and the investigators for Jack Smith what happened, what that document was? I mean, this is yet another layer in a huge peeling onion that shows that Trump has some serious exposure here.
Yeah, there's no question it's a significant layer of onion peel. And both to Paul's really important point and your own, Katie, we don't even know how many more layers to this onion there is in terms of all these classified documents. It was one of the reasons everyone was so deeply concerned that it wasn't just a mere document retention issue, but that it was the nature of how many and how seriously classified, as we know there are different levels of classification there are. So to your point, we know that there are witnesses appearing in droves at this point, despite Donald Trump's best efforts and his legal team's best efforts to keep people with knowledge and information that directly relates to what Donald Trump might know and what these documents represented away from Jack Smith and away from that grand jury. And we don't know what any of these witnesses are saying, but what we do know is they are at the top of the government food chain in terms of who has been testifying before this grand jury, who would have direct knowledge and who would have every personal interest in making sure they were not perjuring themselves, and possibly, because we don't know, even being offered the opportunity to have immunity if they had any concern about their own criminal liability. So that's just a long way of saying we don't know all the facts. Paul is really right to spell that out. But to your point, Katie, we certainly know that people who, if they're goods to be got, Jack Smith's got the folks who got them.
Oh. Well put. Well put. If there's goods to be got, Jack Smith has got the folks that got him. I really like that. I think that's a good way to put it. Let's look at what y'all have to say. I saw some of your comments. Really want to get to it. Oh, come on now. Come on now. There we go. Wicked Foxy Dragon said, there is no way for any of us to pull them out, referring to the Trump supporters. Even if Trump admits to doing this stuff, they will make excuses for why what he did is not really a crime. I think you're right with a big group of them. With a whole lot of them, yes. But remember, we are not only having the debate for the sake of winning that person over in that moment. Doing it for a couple of reasons. Number one, remember the way people change. Remember the way change is accomplished, particularly in the United States, but truly with every movement. It's slow and consistent. Let me try that again. It is sustainable, by which I usually mean light or lazy or any other way you could frame it, but it's sustainable effort over a long period of time. In fact, what the hell? I should be recording this. The idea is to do sustainable effort over a long period of time. This includes when you are trying to convince a Trump supporter. Will you convince them in that conversation? If you talk about, for example, the documents case, probably not. But you're going to give them something to think about, and thinking is what kills fascism. Frankly, you want to know why the GOP don't want books in schools? Why they're doing these book bans? They know it. Why have they been against college education from the jump? They know it. Thinking kills fascism. You will get people to think by asking them to take a stance now on such cases. You'll also get them looking for the follow-up. If they think they're going to be asked about this again in the future, they'll pay closer attention. But remember, you're not just doing it to convince them in that moment or just to convince them. You're also doing it so that you can learn for yourself how to make these cases better, so that you can make observations about them, so that you can come back here and say, folks, I had this conversation. It didn't go the way my old pal Jake said it would. They said X or Y, and then jumped out the window and ran away on a scooter. You'll get information. That's also useful. And then finally, you're going to convince anybody who is listening in, whether you know it or not. Those of you who have kids, how often have you found out years later that they knew about something you didn't know they knew about? That's not just kids. You will have an effect by having these conversations, and rather than suggesting to you that we save our energy by not trying to have these conversations with Trump supporters, I say save your energy while you have these conversations with Trump supporters. Try to get them locked in to positions and remind them when they were locked into these positions. And you save your energy by accepting in your heart when you go in that they will not fall to their knees weeping with gratitude for enlightenment. Not in that conversation. the same way you go to the gym knowing that after you lift the weights, the weights are going to stay heavy. They're not going to stay lifted forever. It's a process. It's more about consistency. And it's more about that person having a conversation with you, and they leave that conversation feeling like they just acted like an erratic fool, instead of someone whose political opinion is something they can hold their head high about. And the next time they go have a conversation with somebody, they are going to be less committed, less sure of themselves, and they're going to be less able to convince somebody that has no information and is unsure of themselves, i.e., the kind of person who Trump is constantly trying to get. They're going to be less likely to sway that person. Consider it. That's all I ask. More comments. Let's have a look. I also agree with you. I mean, I want to be clear. There is no way for any of us to pull them out. I think there's no way that we're going to pull them out quickly, I guess I would say. Dawned on me. I don't think they're hurt and don't want to believe they're just hateful, bigoted idiots, at least the ones I know. Yeah, it's... the difficult thing is that a lot of them are hateful, bigoted idiots. And then you clarify, at least the ones I know. Exactly. That's exactly the issue here. Yeah, a lot of the hateful, bigoted idiots are setting the tone. They're powering the scam. But the reason it has to be a scam in the first place is because a significant chunk of them are not. They've just been tricked. Remember what we talked about? I think we talked about this yesterday. What if we're wrong? What if would we feel bad about being wrong if it turns out that Q really is a secret government leaker, and it's not just that one con artist who got his gig stolen by 8chan or whatever? What if Hillary, there really is a secret basement underneath a pizza shop, and Hillary Clinton drinks chemicals harvested from children? Will you feel foolish if that ends up being true? I won't. That's a hell of a conspiracy. If that's really what happened, I mean, I'd be angry, but I'd almost be impressed. My God. Well, look at that the other way. It seems foolish to us to think that the election was stolen in 2020. That seems pretty darn silly. All of us, in fact, I won't even say the number right now, other than to tell you it's a multiple of 6. No, it's not. Damn it. All right, fine. It's 61. There was 61 cases about this. I was going to do a little quiz, but it's too goofy, and I don't want to do a poll. There were 61 cases in court about this, one of which, only one, Trump won. He lost 60. And the one that Trump won in court was an eventual loss when it went to the next stage. And it was a procedural issue. That was it. Regarding the court cases, we know that. But now imagine you're a Fox News watcher. Do you think they know that? How often were they told that? Very rarely. Almost never. They were denied that information. How about the studies done on Fox News watchers? If people watch Fox, it has been established they have a worse understanding of how the U.S. political system works, about how the world functions, than people that don't watch any news at all. So it's entirely believable, to me anyway, it's believable that someone could be in a place where Fox News is on the TV in all the businesses, and it's on the TV at home, and it's turning up in their notifications on their social media, and they fall for this stuff. It's a big part of the reason why we're going to have to do a lot of this work ourselves between now and 2024. And the goal of 2024 will be to automate this work. That means, getting rid of Fox. Such a place cannot call itself a news organization. We cannot have misinformation treated the same way as genuine news organizations. We just can't do it anymore. It's going to mean putting in reasonable protections for all Americans, be they trans, be they guilty of the sin of being born with reproductive organs that function. They will deserve reasonable protections that we're going to have to put in place. But until then, evangelizing. We got 70 million customers to sell democracy to. John McDonough, I suspect 2016 election was stolen in some way, but not enough to bitch about. We blew that election because Democrats don't live their values. Yes. Thank you. We have to walk the walk, exactly. Find solutions to real problems, but now the issues are not about real problems. Yes and no. A ton of the issues are about real problems. I would agree that a lot of the issues are just are fun make-em-ups. It's something for centrist Dems to play fight with Republicans over. But we got some real ones. But you've given the perfect segue to our next segment. Yeah, it was, by the way. 2016 election. I don't believe it was stolen. But it's also a matter of fact that it was interfered with. It's just, we just have to be honest about that. Doesn't mean it was illegitimate. It was perfectly legitimate. But let's talk about how this gets interfered with and how we are going to be interfered with again in 24. And of course, what you can do about it. So John McDonough brought up a really interesting point in the comments, talking about believing that the 2016 election was interfered with in some way, let's say. I agree. And so does the vast majority of the world. It's just a statement of fact that the 2016 election was interfered with. By the way, so was the 2020 election. We are in conflict with Russia right now. We have been in conflict with Russia every year Putin has been in power. That needs to be understood by you and me. All Americans should be aware of this. In fact, around the world, particularly if you are a NATO member nation, a hell of a mouthful, your elections are influenced in some way by Russia, and you are in conflict with Russia. It's not the same thing as being at war. And we shouldn't treat it like we're at war, but we should treat it accurately like we are in conflict with them. What is the difference? We're not shooting bullets at each other, but we are taking steps to harm the other. Russia has something called the Web Brigade, which it has used to great effect. It's been studied. It was used in 2016, and brace yourselves, because it's going to be hard to hear, to support Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. Think about that. It's true. Here's something hard for me to swallow, but it is fact. I'm a massive fan of Bernie Sanders. I became a true believer in progressive values. Not so. I became a true believer in voting for progressives in 2016, in part thanks to Russia. What happens is they, and it's going to increase exponentially with AI now, but they hire or force or do whatever Russians do, a bunch of people called the Web Brigade. These are government employees to go into forums of countries that they disagree with and instigate, be trolls, essentially, on behalf of the most extreme candidates. Now, to Russia's dismay, Bernie Sanders was about the best thing that ever happened to American politics. Bernie Sanders had a plan that a whole lot of people are now behind. But the purpose was to cause chaos. And I'm convinced that Putin did not think he could actually get Trump elected. But it was wildly successful, way more successful than it had ever been before. He did get Trump elected. And that resulted in this situation. Right, John?
Just off on a bit of a tangent, because, you know, Trump and DeSantis is doing it as well now, claims that he could sort out this whole war in one or two phone calls. Well, we know what that's going to be. It's going to be a phone call to Putin and a phone call to Zelensky, and he's going to say to Putin, okay, you can have this much land, and Zelensky, this is what you've got to be happy with. I mean, what's the deal here? Because I believe, and I actually blame Donald Trump for this war. You know, I think that his relationships with Russia and the way he ran the US on the world stage very much kind of are the reason that this war happened, or part.
Just very quickly, want to say this is 5 Minute News, the weekend show. Link to the full interview is in the description. On the Midas Touch Network, 5 Minute News, I think, may be one of the best overall productions. If you're only going off the opinions of the host and the ability to interview, it's got fantastic interviews. I love all the rest for various reasons. Midas Touch, great network overall, but 5 Minute News, check it out for sure. Starring this man whose scalp is a vision of my near future.
Part of the reason that this war happened. Can you just explain that to people? Because I don't think it's very easy to make the correlation between, you know, Trump being the instigator for Russia invading Ukraine.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, if you go back to the, even in late 15, early 16, when the Republican National Committee platform was being hammered out, there was a lot of jostling and jockeying about what the platform would say vis-a-vis Ukraine, and toning down the language in terms of giving Ukraine defensive weapons at the time. And that was really watered down. And then you had Trump throughout his presidency signaling that, you know, he was not going to push back against Putin very strongly. He was constantly questioning the value of NATO, whether or not the U.S., when he was on the campaign trail, he made statements about, I don't know whether or not if that the United States would honor its mutual defense obligations to NATO if NATO were attacked. So from even...
Do you remember when he was saying that stuff? There were so many folks that wrote it up, you know, at first, including myself. I might have touched on this in an article for an official news station. I'll have to look back at my sordid past. But there was a lot of folks that chalked it all up to ignorance, to bloviating, to not being part of a plan. But very quickly we realized, oh yeah, Trump has business ties in Russia. I think we underestimate how much Trump considered Putin to be responsible for his election as president. Remember that he full on, in front of a podium into a microphone with national TV cameras running, he begged Russia to hack the emails of a political opponent. And they complied that night. Reporting appears to have verified a Russian IP address hacked Hillary Clinton's emails. Another thing we need to remember, I'm the most guilty of this of all. In fact, I just did it. Constantly say, this happened on national television. This crime. And yet we can't prove it. We can't find where he said it behind the scenes. Here's the rough thing to get. He never says this stuff behind the scenes. Or rather, let me take that back. He never has to say this stuff behind the scenes. If he does it publicly, the people who he needs to hear the message. How often did we say that Fox News had an audience of 1 on some of its broadcasts? Yeah. Just like the mob passing messages back and forth over public phone lines using coded language, Trump makes his requests of these people publicly. Now that you know that, pay attention to what Ron DeSantis is doing here as well. Because I think you'll find both of these people are trying to work with, let's call it what it is, an enemy of the nation, a NATO adversary. Even if we're not at war, we are still in conflict with them. We are still at odds. What is good for us, they consider bad for them. So pay attention to what Trump and Ron DeSantis are saying here as they run for president. They're pretending to talk to the American people who they know either don't give a damn about this or are on their side. Because the people that do give a damn will not take what they're saying seriously. Unless, have a look.
Before he was president, he was saying things that were deeply undermining of the NATO relationship and of broadly the United States relationship with Western Europe and the EU. And that continued when he was in the presidency. And if certainly, most famously, of course, telling Zelensky, conditioning aid, defensive aid, on a political favor, specifically against Biden. And I think Putin saw this, and people say, well, Putin didn't invade, right? Well, he didn't need to. I mean, he had Crimea at the time, but the things that Putin was achieving just by having Trump in power, I think the question was when he left, how much the Europeans, after 4 years of Trump, felt they could or could not count on the U.S. for assistance. And then certainly you're right, to the extent that after they've gone in, there is any proposal to solve Ukraine in 24 hours. The only way you're going to do that is by telling Ukraine, you have to accept giving up some territory, not just Crimea, but other territory, because there's no other way that Putin's going to settle for that. So I think what's interesting in this is certainly there is so much writing from a Russian perspective, but also, frankly, from a Ukrainian one, so much writing on this next election that I expect to see the amount of interference and activity that we're going to see out of Russia, to some extent Ukraine, but Russia has many more resources in this regard, from intelligence operations, from sort of disinformation and perception management type activities. It is hugely in Putin's interest to get Trump and or DeSantis, who are parroting this line about solving the problem in 24 hours, hugely in their interest to elect the Republican candidate.
Okay. So, DeSantis said he's going to solve this in 24 hours. I think he was saying Trump said the same thing. What does solve it in 24 hours really mean? Peter Strzok just laid it out. By the way, here's a man with experience. Here's a guy that in any other past scenario I'd be in direct odds with. They're going to solve it in 24 hours, they say. What does that mean? Literally, that means that they're going to stop helping Ukraine and give chunks of it, which we don't have a right to give. Our only question right now is, are we going to be allies or not? They're going to broker a deal with Russia to give chunks of Ukraine to Russia. In exchange for what? In exchange for help winning the 2024 election. We're going to see, as what Strzok is laying out here, they've just made an offer to Russia. They're appealing to Russia. They're appealing to Russia over the American people. When they say, I'm going to wrap this up in 24 hours, who's that for? When DeSantis says there's going to be no boots on the ground, nobody was talking about sending U.S. soldiers to fight in Ukrainian war. I, frankly, would think that is a noble use of our military, and I'd still vote. I'd still campaign against it. God help me, I would campaign against it because I don't think. I have personal beliefs about sending people to go kill other people. I don't think we should do that. But if we were going to do that, that's the most noble way we could do it. But nobody's suggesting that. We're sick of war. We had 20 years of it. So why, if nobody's suggesting it, why is Ron DeSantis saying it? To make his constituents worry about it. To make people that he might be able to sway to his side worry about it. It's dishonest on behalf of Russia. The big picture then, what is happening? A political party, the two main contenders to be the candidate for president, leader of the whole country, they're making offers to Russia while lying to the American people and betraying an ally. If it is any consolation, this becomes very easy to read once you start to I guess, empathize with the bigger picture. Understand what people are thinking, feeling, and doing outside of our normal groups. So if you think about what Russia is doing, if you think about our recent history with the Web Brigade, it becomes very easy to identify. This also means you can get MAGA folks thinking about this stuff as well. It's not going to instantly change their minds, but I'll tell you, it sure as hell is going to get them thinking about it the next time they're lied to. And eventually, one of these things will crop up at a time when they're feeling pretty sick of it. And a couple of percentages here and there, a couple of percentage points here and there, is going to do a world of good for the world. So keep mentioning this stuff. Not quite done with this yet. Something else you should make all voters aware of, especially people that call themselves independent voters. Republicans cannot stop projecting. And this is mostly for y'all. But Republicans are incapable of not projecting, and we're going to go into that in the second half of this clip. Let's have a look. And you'll have to excuse the somewhat awkward transitions. I'm trying a new thing with recording. We'll see how it looks. So Republicans cannot stop projecting, and I would like to talk about that. Let's look at Peter Strzok talking about Donald Trump's outward fascism. He's really become mask off. But he says something interesting in this, which tells me a lot about the people who are voting for him. And I'll tell you, it's an in for us. If you're one of those folks that wants America to be a sane and decent place, we got a big in. And it's very obvious because Donald Trump is trying to use it for his own benefit. And he's talking directly to his voters. So this is a way we can reach his voters. Let's look at it.
Assuming it's one of the two of them. So as we get closer and closer to the election in 2024, I fully expect to see a very vigorous and active Russian campaign to try and influence the election to get the person into the presidency who are going to allow them to solve the Ukraine conflict in terms favorable to Russia.
In Trump's scary video on Thursday, he kind of finished with a piece about how the 2024 election was already being weaponized by the Democrats and how they were already cheating. And he was, again, sowing the seeds of disinformation about misinformation about the 2024 election. I mean, this is what he does, right? He, if he doesn't win, it must be fraud. That's, him and Carrie Lake, they're kind of made for each other. So, I mean, how dangerous is that? Because for me as a European, like seeing someone who is as dangerous as Donald Trump, still a free man, right? Despite the investigations, despite 2 impeachments, despite the sexual abuse case, still a free man. Nothing sticks to this guy. The language that he was using in that video, and I'll show a clip of it.
The Russia hoax was the most atrocious weaponization of our government in American history. As the Durham report makes clear, it was a crime like no other. 7 years ago, I ran for office taking on...
So I just want to point out a couple of things. Number one, the projection. He cannot help but talk about the reality. This is a technique that the right uses. I don't know if it arrived by calculation or evolution, but it's very common for the right now. What they do is talk about a situation that is as near to the truth as possible, and then right at the end, they button hook it. Right at the end, they switch it to being about somebody else, to being their enemies that are doing it. What did he just say? The Russia, quote-unquote, hoax was a massive crime. Yeah, his involvement with Russia was a massive crime. Agreed.
All of the corrupt forces who got rich, bleeding America dry. They got...
And there it is. All of the corrupt forces that got rich, bleeding America dry. Isn't that just what progressives have been talking about? I showed you a map of Michigan. It's easier for me to get that stuff. I have a map of Michigan, shows which counties voted for Bernie Sanders in the 2016 Democratic primaries. And 100%, nope, I don't know what the percentage is. All but one, now that I think about it, all but one voted for Trump in the 2016 general. What was Bernie Sanders' main pitch to folks? The rich are bleeding us dry. There should be no more billionaires. We can downgrade them to 100 millionaires. Obviously, Republicans care about things other than that as well. MAGA folks care about things other than that as well. But look at Trump making a pitch for himself in 2023. What does he talk about? Corrupt people bleeding America dry. So what I'm hearing is that the king of MAGA over here believes that MAGA voters care about that. I think he's right. What is his plan for dealing with these corrupt rich people that are bleeding America dry? What's his plan? Because I've got one. Brother Bernie's got one. Ms. Cortez has one. Is she married? I don't know. Representative Cortez has one. How about that? Pramila Jayapal, every time. And I said Miss Cortez because I was trying to set it up so I didn't have to say Pramila. Pramila Jayapal has one. Progressives have one. Tax the rich more. So there's no profit in them bleeding you. Remove the profit incentive. And, by the way, make them pay their fair share. They already got way more than you have. They don't need more. But how interesting is it that Donald Trump, in the midst of outing himself for all the other things that are clearly something he's self-conscious about, comes out and says that a major concern for his voting base is that America bleeds them dry. The rich in America, anyway.
Absolutely rich, so rich you wouldn't even believe it. Our agenda was a threat to the entire political establishment. In response, a group of unelected thugs in the senior ranks of our government, working with crooked Hillary Clinton, launched a coup attempt to try and sabotage our campaign.
Again, you can see what's on their mind. Trump is not a mystery. I have no idea why anybody ever said this guy had to be like, oh, there's a Trump whisperer. Oh, it's so hard to figure him out. No, he's clearly thinking about the coup that he's being investigated for, one hopes, right now. You can clearly you can see he wears it on his sleeve what the last thing he was thinking about is.
Our presidency, our movement, and our country. Crooked Hillary and Crooked Joe Biden. You know, we switched names now. We call Hillary Lovely Hillary.
You just called her crooked. But yes, he's obviously he's threatened by Joe Biden because he's trying to transfer that Hillary hate to Joe Biden. He's telling his audience, you got to start hating Joe like you hated Hillary. Because he lost to Joe.
And Crooked Joe, because we've seen so much. And James Comey and Andrew McCabe, Barack Hussein Obama.
Oh, toss in a little, just a quick reminder, still racist. Great.
All of them and all of the rest knew that it was a lie, a total lie. It was a scam. The entire time was all a big hoax. And they put our country through hell. The destruction the Russia hoax caused to America is...
He just can't help himself. They put our country through hell. So he knows he put the country through
almost
hell.
Incalculable.
Destruction was almost incalculable.
Subverted our democracy.
Subverted our democracy. Every accusation is a confession. This guy just cannot help himself.
Weaponized our law enforcement.
Weaponized law enforcement. He certainly did. Look at the Durham report. Hey, MAGA, if you happen to be listening, Christ, I'm shocked if that's the case. But hey, maybe a decent human being suggested this to you, in which case, hi. Do look at the Durham report. There was a perfectly legitimate reason to investigate Trump's connections with Russia. By the way, at the top of this show, the live stream, I talked about him. On stage! He asked for a foreign country to interfere with the U.S. election. Yes, he should have been investigated. It was a totally righteous investigation. And this guy right now, up there in that video, which he decided was a good idea to pull out. He's just pouring his heart out about what he has done and what he will do.
It stoked global conflict.
Stoke global conflict.
And it wrecked countless lives.
He wrecked countless lives. Remember COVID? Remember when that clown was in charge of things? Telling people to shine UV lights on them, eat horse paste, inject bleach, do anything other than take the disease seriously. He tried to get Governor Gretchen Whitmer killed, almost succeeded. He used rhetoric that implied violence against her, and shortly thereafter we had the Wolverine Watchman try to take her out. Thank God Attorney General Dana Nessel didn't let that happen. That's partially why I believe we are so desperately in need of a real Attorney General in the federal government. By the way, Ms. Nessel, if I can call you Jenny Karate Chops. Jenny, you should run for that position. I don't know how one runs to be Attorney General. I know that it's an appointed position. You should find a way to run. I would very much like you, Dana Nessel, to be the Attorney General. So whatever politicking you got to do, we need somebody other than Merrick Garland. And if Fani Willis wraps up her investigation, gets a conviction, then she should be the next Attorney General. But I'm sick of Merrick Garland because this clown is a free man putting out these videos, which are borderline confessions and telling us exactly what he's going to do if we allow him anywhere near power ever again. He is going to fuck us up. All of us. And himself. He's pouring the gasoline. Don't give him a match.
It provided the pretext for the left's war on our freedom of speech.
Pretext for a war on freedom of speech. Yeah, book bannings, all that stuff.
First of all, the FBI and the DOJ, both very corrupt.
FBI and DOJ, both very corrupt. It's true. Proof of it, he's not in prison right now.
Have interfered in every election since 2016, and now they are interfering in the 2020.
Interfered by not catching crooks who are interfering.
24 presidential election before your very eyes.
As he is before your very eyes, telling you about how the election is being interfered with before your very eyes. Shortly after making sure Russia knew that he was going to be their puppet.
Must be a reckoning, for better or worse.
There must be a reckoning. For better or worse, there must be a reckoning. With that motherfucker right there. Once and for all, handcuffs need to go on this guy. No presidential prison mansion. A regular prison cell, like the Oath Keepers have. We imprison old folks all the time in the U.S. He should be no different.
Worse, accountability for these crimes lies in the hands of the voters.
Do I need to say anything?
The Durham report has made the stakes very clear.
Yes, it has.
And now the choices are as either the deep state destroys America or we destroy the deep state.
The choice is very clear. Either we beat him or he destroys America. Let's see what the wicked community has to say. Oh boy. Bomber Fox, Gitmo, heck yes. John McDonough. Jesus Christ, this guy Trump just spews vomit. He really does. Bomber Fox Kinds should have included people like Trump in the classes we got rid of. Interesting. I'll have a look at that. Oh my God. Well put, John McDonough. The choice is deep state or deep hate. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Anytime it's, just coincidentally, anytime a Republican gets in trouble, it's the deep state. Dawned on me. Trump is directly responsible for what happened in the exit of Afghanistan. Yes. Yes, he is. Dawned on me, but you don't see Jordan wanting to run an investigation into the Afghanistan withdrawal. No, they're not interested in principles at all. Bomber Fox says, I swear, his parasitic class needs to be overthrown by workers. Yes. Mars Falcon, he was more about banning all Muslims from the country in 2016, Wireless Mike. This is Mars Falcon talking to Wireless Mike. The fact that he says he will violate the Constitution and it is just normal is a huge fucking problem. Yeah, I agree pretty much across the board. Jess Rush, I love when people used to say that Trump was playing chess and Dems were playing checkers. Do they actually think Trump could play chess? I bet he cannot spell chess. Yeah. Patrick Thibodeau with a really good point. Whenever Trump says our country, he means me. Yeah. When he says us, he means me. When he says our country, he means me. My country, maybe. No, he just means me. Yeah, I mean, you put it perfectly. Anytime Trump uses inclusionary language, he is really only talking about himself. I have one more for you. There is hope, folks. We're going to talk about that with my man Tom Hartman in a moment. And that moment is now. Although I do have to set it up. Oh, mother of pearl. Ooh. Well, I'm glad I didn't start recording just yet. All right, there we go. All right, recording. Well, folks, we're talking a lot about how bad Trump is, how bad things could be. It all comes from the fact that we live in an oligarchy. An oligarchy can really just be defined as when rich people have too much control over the government. The government is now bending to the will of rich people. We had a train derailment that was the result of this. We have had shrinking wages for workers as a result of this. We've had anti-union laws that are just now being fought, finally, and in some cases defeated. Thank God. As a result of the oligarchy. I realize that for most of our lives, oligarchy was a word that meant a problem a foreign country has. But it's been the reality we've been living under for years and years. Buckley versus Vallejo, Citizens United. We've been getting losses to these folks. So what do? Well, take a step back. What did we just say? Oligarchy is a problem that we have recognized. So we're off to a good start. Americans acknowledge that you should not have an oligarchy. And we've recognized it in other countries. It's going to be hard for Americans to swallow, but once in a while, it's very useful to look at what other countries have done and then do it ourselves. This is called following their lead. The benefit to this, I'm being sarcastic, but it's truly, we've been well and truly indoctrinated into thinking that everything America does is right because America did it. So, go with me for a moment. It is useful to look at what other countries do because We can find what works, find what has worked historically, and we don't have to experiment. We can just do it. And here's Tom Hartman talking about how another country got rid of its oligarchs. And I'll tell you, I think we can do just about everything in this.
Deal with our oligarch problem. And, I start out by telling the story of Viktor Medvedchuk.
Ah, yes.
He was the Rupert Murdoch of Ukraine. He was a billionaire oligarch who owned a right-wing television network and a whole bunch of TV stations, along with a bunch of other businesses in Ukraine. And his TV network was constantly spewing hate and division and...
By the way, why would you want to own a TV station if you're an oligarch? Yeah, sure, a TV station can itself be a profitable thing, but just for clarity, so you understand, to run a television station, to actually forget the employees, which cost money, but literally to turn it on and have it function. It's not the same as the internet. The reason everybody on Earth can have a YouTube channel like this, and by the way, if it sounds like fun to you, I encourage you to do it, is because we offload the cost of sending the signal around. But a television station, what makes it a station, why you use that name even, is that it has the ability to project that signal. That costs a tremendous amount of energy. The bills for a TV station, for just running the antenna, the power bills per month are measured in the tens of thousands of dollars for a little one. For a big one, like what Medvedev, I can't even say his name, what that oligarch owned, it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So why is that a good investment for an oligarch? I'll tell you, it's the same reason why Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro were great investments for the billionaires that funded their networks. Well, it's Steven Crowder's potential network, but their shows got funded by wealthy people. Because having a ultra irrational voice in the media is very important to these people. That is a side note he doesn't touch on, but let's watch the rest mostly uninterrupted.
And he was, he owned a bunch of politicians and was promoting tax cuts for the rich and all this kind of stuff, right? I mean, just an incredible parallel. And then came Vladimir Zelensky. Zelensky ran for president of Ukraine and won on an anti-oligarch, anti-corruption platform. And last year, it became law in the first week of June of last year, of 2022. Zelensky passed a law to strip oligarchs of their ability to influence elections in Ukraine. Yes, you heard that right. He did the same thing that Teddy Roosevelt and Franklin Roosevelt did. I mean, it was just incredible. They call it de-oligarchization. Seriously, this is not a word I made up. It's what they call their law, the de-oligarchization law of Ukraine. And basically what they're saying is, we don't have a problem with you being rich in Ukraine, and we don't have a problem with you having a political opinion. But if you use your riches to get what you want politically, that's wrong. That's now a crime. And, and what Zelensky said, in fact, when he rolled out this law, May 18th, 2021, he said, in order to succeed, Ukraine must become a rule of law democracy that works in the interest of the many rather than the few. He said, in order to realize our potential, we must create a fair and functional system that protects the rights of the entire population rather than just safeguarding the interests of the oligarchs.
Doesn't that just sound like a prescription for what we need in the United States of America? I think so, personally. And it's not a coincidence that Volodymyr Zelensky was an actor who played a character who specifically was against the corruption in his government. on his fictitious television show before he was an actual, he played a candidate, a presidential candidate who was against corruption, and then became president. And he became then an actual person against corruption who became president. We can do these very same things. I'm excited to hear that the problems are so similar because their solution worked. It worked so well that Russia felt it had to invade. Good. If it makes Russia that angry, it's something we should strongly consider doing.
Our ultimate objective, this is the president of Ukraine saying this a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, saying our ultimate objective is to destroy the traditional oligarchic order and replace it with a fairer system that will allow Ukraine to flourish. Now, under this law that they passed in Ukraine that went into effect in June of last year, it was passed in 2021, Ukrainian is, by definition, an oligarch if they meet three out of the four following criteria. Number one, they have a net worth greater than $89 million. Number two, they have significant, in quotes, influence over mass media. Number three, they control a business that exercises monopoly influence.
I just want to really highlight that one of the symptoms of being an oligarch, one of the, I believe, four, did he say? Four listed, of which you need 3 to qualify as an oligarch, is a significant influence over mass media. Rupert Murdoch, by the by, he's an Australian man, but he's an American oligarch. He's not the only one.
Mass media. Number three, they control a business that exercises monopoly influence over part of the economy. And number four, they involve themselves in politics through funding politicians, political parties, political campaigns, or think tanks. In other words, do they, quote, take part in political life? If they do, if they meet 3 out of those 4 criteria, then number one, they're included on the official register of Ukrainian oligarchs published by the government. Number two, they may not run for political office. They may not fund political parties, and they may not have any influence over any meaningful part of Ukrainian political life. Number three, they may not purchase any state assets that are privatized. They're still in the process of privatizing a lot of the old Soviet-era stuff. Number four, they must disclose their assets, and this is where I first learned about this, was the Financial Times had a piece about this, and they called these exhaustive declarations. And number five, government officials are now required in Ukraine to report any meeting with any oligarch. Just lunch, you got to report it. Clarence Thomas, you want to go on vacation, you got to report it.
What if we only passed that law? Forget everything else. All were good. All were excellent. But what if we just passed that law where it's required to report a meeting with someone classified as an oligarch? Someone for who 3 of 4 symptoms are absolutely true. What would the rap sheets look like? I have a feeling with conservative Democrats, it would be as long as your arm. With all Republicans, it'd be as long as your leg. And progressives would only have to write down that one time where they burst into a room to tell them to go F themselves. It'd make it very clear who's who. And remember what Trump said about Americans being bled dry. His words. They're bleeding us dry. The ultra-rich. There's an opportunity here. And I'll tell you what, even if you can't convince MAGA people to vote for non-MAGA candidates, you can convince them. You absolutely can convince them to tell the people they have voted for to support these laws. We won't get all. Of course not. We won't get most, but we'll get some. And sometimes a little something's all you need.
Now, we once had a similar tradition here in the United States. In fact, Americans want this right now. When Donald Trump was running for president, you will recall during the Republican primary in one of the debates, he came out and he was talking about the oligarchs, which is kind of ironic because he's one himself, but he said he was speaking of Jeb Bush and the other Republicans on the stage. And he said, they'll be bombarded by their lobbyists that donated a lot of money to them. Again, Jeb raised $107 million, okay? They're not putting that money up because it's a wonderful charity. Well, it's a charity, but for them, not for America. And, and he goes on to his rant about this and says he's going to deal with the oligarch problem. He's going to raise taxes so much that his friends are going to hate him. Well,
of course he didn't. I'm going to let Tommy Heartbreaker remake that point. But just want to laugh. Wicked Foxy Dragon commenting on the what if we made such a list. Republicans would have a heart attack. One of the fun things we could do is take bets on how far out of their chest their hearts will literally burst when that law passes. And for that alone, for the hilarity of watching them cluck and panic and scramble to cancel meetings with wealthy people giving them bribes. Can't you just imagine? Ooh, tasty. I can't wait for it. Let's make it happen.
It says he's going to deal with the oligarch problem. He's going to raise taxes so much that his friends are going to hate him. Well, of course, he didn't do that. He cut taxes on billionaires. But, Donald Trump was always lying through his teeth. But the fact of the matter is that millions and millions of people voted for him because they thought he was going to de-oligarchize America. We had laws like this on the books. In 1907, we had the Tillman Act, which made it a federal crime for any wealthy executive of a large corporation to give any money or support to any candidate for federal office. But states had laws like this too. The Wisconsin law, for example, this was actually on the books in Wisconsin until the Supreme Court overturned it. I'll just read it to you. There's 2 sentences.
Just want to brag about my audience here. Law on the books before the Supreme Court overturned it. Before that point in the show, who said it? Hold on. Anti-corporatist. Once again, well, the Supreme Court would strike it down. Duh. Yes. Supreme Court probably would do everything they can to prevent these things from happening. Wicked Foxy Dragon, in response to my heart's comment, said, wait, they would need hearts. Obviously, they're not using their hearts. For Republicans, that is a superfluous organ. Christ, so close to being witty. But yes, to the anti-corporatist point about the Supreme Court knocking these things down. Number one, we want, first and foremost, the purpose of the vast majority of what we're going to be doing is going to be making it crystal clear to the American people who we're dealing with. If the Supreme Court knocks down a popular bill that would have made us more honest, would have made us have to report, for example, when meeting with oligarchs, we're no worse off than we were, and the people who supported that bill will have a better idea of what the Supreme Court is. Thing number 2 is that it's not promised that they'll do this. They are also aware of that fact. They're also aware of their legitimacy problem. They're also aware of the fact that they might not exist in 10 years based on the way things are going. They are so corrupt, and knowingly so, that they might throw us a bone. An actual fair decision. Depending on what America looks like when this passes. It's going to be very different if there's a crowd of people outside the Supreme Court looking angry with signs that say, no more aristocracy. If they see everybody clamoring for that. They're going to try to come out and say, like, well, of course we ruled in favor of the anti-oligarchy bill, and frankly, all these rabble-rousers should be ashamed that they were making such a scene of it. You need to have faith in the court. That might be something they try to do. In other words, ruling in favor of it. It's just going to depend on the context. But regardless, whether we actually get it passed or whether we simply have it as an example of how to clown on these clowns, it's going to be of benefit to us. But a very good point, and I just want to praise the anti-corporatists for being ahead of Tom Hartman on this. It's impressive.
No corporation doing the business in this state shall pay or contribute or offer consent or agree to pay or contribute, directly or indirectly, any money, property, free service of its officers or employees or thing of value to any political party, organization, committee, or individual for any political purpose whatsoever, or for the purpose of influencing legislation of any kind, or to promote or defeat the candidacy of any person for nomination, appointment, or election to any political office. Now, what were the penalties for this? Any, quote, any officer, employee, agent, or attorney, or other representative of any corporation who shall violate this act shall be punished upon conviction by imprisonment in the state prison for a period of not less than 1 nor more than 5 years. And if a domestic corporation, it may be dissolved. And if a foreign or non-resident corporation, its right to do business in this state may be declared forfeit. This is the kind of law we need to bring back. This is the kind of law we had in America for 100 years until 5 corrupt Republicans on the U.S. Supreme Court blew it up. And by the way, the deciding vote in Citizens United was Clarence Thomas. And this was after he had developed his relationship with Harlan Crow.
Of course.
An American oligarch. After that law was struck down and all the others by Citizens United and its predecessors, the following states had to strike down laws that were very similar to the one that I just read you from Wisconsin. They included Alaska, Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Iowa, Kentucky, Minnesota, Montana, North Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, West Virginia, and, as I read to you, Wisconsin.
Where was California in that? Where was New England? Actually, New England's not that liberal, but where was actually Vermont is not that liberal. They just keep electing Bernie. Notice all those states that Supreme Court opinion by Clarence Thomas, they were conservative or very conservative leaning. What does that tell you about how conservatives generally feel about oligarchs? What message was Trump saying that we looked at earlier? They're bleeding you dry. This is an inroad. This is an issue we can get genuine bipartisan support on. As in support from MAGA, along with progressives. Who will fight this? The genuine uniparty. Those in the pockets of oligarchs already. We did that chart, which takes inspiration from D&D and classifies right wing and left wing into 2 separate groups. Classifies right wing and left wing into 4 separate groups. 2 right wing groups and 2 left wing groups. It was for this reason, for this issue. One of those groups is anti-oligarchy. We are the most ideologically opposed to the people we are going to be able to ally with on this. And that is going to take some swallowing of pride and some discarding of venom. This is going to be like, God, like, you know what? This is going to be like allying with Stalin to get rid of Hitler. Doesn't mean that the U.S. liked Stalin. They surely didn't. But all of us could acknowledge that Hitler was a bigger problem. That is what we're going to have to get comfortable doing now. This is a pitch that I recommend we make. What can you do? You can talk to your representative. I'll have a link in the description of the VOD to contact your representative. Tell them send them the Tom Hartman clip, also linked in the VOD. Tell them you want anti-oligarchy laws. You want them to put one forward. And when somebody does put one forward, we need to start evangelizing. Go to groups you would not normally go to and make the pitch. Tell them the truth about it, which is that this is a bill designed to get rid of those people you say you hate, to get rid of those shadowy groups that are doing this or that. Get behind it. And you have to believe that it's possible to win in order to fight hard enough that you do win. It is possible. I showed you Trump earlier so that you could hear from the wretched horse's mouth exactly the concerns of his voting base. And yes, it's going to be as distasteful for them for horrible, ridiculous reasons to work with us as it is for us to work with them. But the good news is, if they see you reaching across the aisle, they're going to know that it's a big deal for you to reach across the aisle. And if we're honest with them about the fact that we will not get along, and we do not need to get along, if we're honest with them about that, we can work with them on this, and we should. And hey, I'll pay them an honest compliment. I think they're misinformed. But I think their culture of demanding that their representatives do what they want, even though they demand terrible things, in my opinion, the core of that is good. The core of that is right. The core of that we should adopt. We should make sure our representatives do what we want. So if you can pay them an honest compliment like that, you don't have to, but if you find that you're able to do that, if you find that you're able to speak honestly about this, you can pitch them on laws like this. We can and we should. These oligarchs are the cause of the vast majority of the problems on the planet Earth. Let's take care of them. Give them the boot. Let's see what y'all have to say. I heard that Hillary, this is from Mars Falcon, I heard that Hillary launched a coup on his campaign, in quotes, still trying to puzzle out what that could mean and what kind of human adult could hear such a thing and think they're backing the right guy. Yeah, the point of it, the reason he does that is to make the word coup meaningless. Why does he want to make the word coup meaningless? Well, I'm betting he's got some information about upcoming court cases that people are going to be hearing about. So he's just used the word coup in a nonsensical way, knowing damn well that it's going to buy him a couple weeks of his people hearing, yeah, charges about a coup. We hear this all the time. What else has he said? The FBI is corrupt. Why the FBI specifically? Because that's who would investigate domestic terrorists. And on and on and on. He's not terribly hard to read. You just need to assume, if you're confused by him, you've assumed you've had too high an opinion of him. You've assumed he had an actual point to make, other than just to make the word coup meaningless. Oh, Patrick Thibodeau, I think the thing that pisses me off most is the Musk fanboys who don't realize he gets billions in government subsidies for his fancies. It's true. He's the reason there is no Hyperloop in California. Bomber Fox says the Tom Hartman clip is worth showing to everyone. I agree. He did a full-on what you can do. He did my shtick, the rat bastard. But he's right. You should show that clip around for sure. Oh, folks, I had a blast with you today. I'm going to say the same thing I've said every day this week. I'm not positive I'll be able to do a live show tomorrow. It's anti-advertisement. Oh, I'll try like heck, but I'm going to be doing a heck of a lot of traveling for the near future. Well, I deal with family things. Everything's fine, but I gotta travel around. So we'll be doing that. Not sure if I will be able to actually do the live show, but regardless, I will have content for yous up. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. It's the show where we look at what people are talking on the internet and then say what you can do about it. I'll see you tomorrow. Oh, my name's Jake.